Good evening. Welcome to this evening's board meeting for the Pasco School District Board of Directors. We did not have a study session earlier today, so we are just beginning our day here. We welcome you. I probably ought to say, I've not said this before, but this meeting is being recorded, so any comments you make will be recorded, and just keep that in mind as we go through the meeting. You can watch it on YouTube, and I believe it's also broadcast on PSC TV, the Pasco channel. So we'll begin this evening with a flag salute. We welcome the students from Whittier Elementary. Principal Silva, are you going to take it away?
Good evening, President Christensen, board members, and Superintendent Whitney. I would like to invite my second grade ASB officers to come forward, please. And at this time, they're going to introduce themselves.
My name is Diana Castillo, and my mom is Erica Gonzalez. My name is Africa Castillo, and my mom is Elvia Zavala. My name is Maria, and today here with me is Eva. My name is Jaden, and my mom is here, and her name is Lee. Hello, my name is Lee. And my mom's name is Cynthia. Hi, my name is Levi Garza. My mom's here with Vicky Bia and my brother. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So thank you, students. Could we get you to come up here? We want to get a picture with you and our student board representatives. So thank you. I think they all told us their moms' names. I'm assuming we have moms here with us. I didn't hear any dad names come up. So, but moms, we want to thank you, and dads and brothers and sisters and anybody else who came with these students. Thank you for coming and bringing them. Mrs. Whitney here is just so impressed with young students. You can, if you were up here listening to her, she just is ready to go back to teaching, I think. So, but we appreciate you coming and sharing this time with us. So thank you, students. So this is an elementary school. Just one unique thing about Whittier, these are the oldest students in Whittier. It is a K-2 school. So they have kindergarten, first and second grades, and then from there they'll go to Curie, which has the older grades. So, but thank you, students, for being leaders, and thanks for coming to our board meeting tonight. Okay, can we get a roll call?
Steve Christensen.
Present.
Sharon Lincoln. Present. Scott Lehrman.
Present.
Amy Phillips. Present. Aaron Richardson.
Present.
Christina Craig. Present. Vanessa Kilis. Present. Isabel Schultz.
She is excused playing softball tonight in the tournament, I believe. Is it? I'm not sure how far along. Playoffs. Yes. Okay, great. Thank you. All right, agenda review.
So I would like to call the board's attention to one item that is highlighted in red under Section 9, Action Item B. There's a slight modification to the capital facilities plan. Ms. Norton will highlight that change during her presentation.
Okay, thank you. Special recognition, Mr. Shane Edinger.
Good evening, Board President Christensen, Superintendent Whitney, and members of the board. This week we are celebrating Teacher Appreciation Week in the Pasco School District. Activities and celebrations will be going on throughout the district to honor our teachers here in Pasco. Today is actually National Teacher Day. We celebrated with cake. Our teachers work daily to make a difference in the lives of our students, and their commitment to that ideal is truly impressive. Tonight we have representatives from each school here with us to help celebrate. I'm going to ask you to please come forward, and when you do come forward, please come along this aisleway to pick up your bag full of brand new Proud of Pasco lanyards. We're going to ask you to distribute all of these lanyards to the teachers in your building. So, without any further ado, from Angelo Elementary, we have Marie Farron and Julio Blanco. From Captain Gray STEM Elementary, Greg Olson. From Chess Elementary, Joy Dawson. From Curie STEM Elementary, Sarah Winokur and Rebecca Oxford. From Emerson Elementary, Cindy Larson. From Franklin STEM Elementary, Julie Estes. From Frost Elementary, Tatiana Polyuk and Zana Karatka. From Livingston Elementary, Deborah Kibling. From Longfellow Elementary, Lydia Xavier Torres. From Markham Elementary, Christy Pisano. From McClintock STEM Elementary, Michelle Grandois. From McGee Elementary, Katie Flannery. From Robinson Elementary, Margarita Morton. From Twain Elementary, Amelia Valdez. And from Whittier Elementary, Hannah Callaghan. From McLaughlin Middle School, Braden Smith. From Ochoa Middle School, Melissa Allred. From Stevens Middle School, Alma Rubio. From Chiawana High School, Leslie Bell. From Delta High School, Beline Mendoza. From New Horizons
up here. Just fill in up here.
From New Horizons High School, Jason O'Leary. From Pasco High School, Courtney Dallas. From IPAL, the Internet Pasco Academy of Learning, Don Baston Hernandez. From our new Early Learning Center, Andrea Braithwaite. And from here in the Booth Building, representing special programs, special education, and teachers on special assignment and behavior. We'd like to thank you all, our Pasco teachers, for all that you do in the lives of our Pasco kids. You truly make a difference every day.
Do we need to just make 2 rows here? Thank you.
Tell me a quick comment. You know, I saw we were recognizing the teachers today. I reflected back on the last 7 years, and so this year is, we've completed 20 school years between my 2 oldest children in the Pasco School District. So even 20, and you know, and we've had many more teachers than that because sometimes there's several teachers in middle school, obviously have lots of teachers. And I just wanted to point out, I wish I could name them all and thank them all, but Patty Osborne has had 2 of my children in kindergarten, and then she moved up to 5th grade and she couldn't escape us, and she had another one of my children in 5th grade this year. And so I'm super appreciative of her putting up with our family for 3 separate years. And second, Kim Bushy at McGee, she had one of my children in 3rd grade, and he actually struggled quite a bit before that, and really was a turning point in his trajectory in education, having Kim Bushy, and now he just excels. You know, we really owe a lot to her, and I'm really grateful for she really changed his life. Just so appreciative of that. And I know we have stories like that all over the district, and I wanted to thank all the teachers that have taught my children and that teach in our school district. So thank you.
Yes, thank you for those of you who came tonight representing your schools, and please take our thanks back to the other teachers in your buildings as well. I don't know how many student years we have in Pasco School District, but it's quite a few, and some excellent teachers here. So thank you for your work. Please keep up the good work, and we'll look forward to many more good years ahead. So, anybody else?
You know, we're very much aware that it's the teachers where the rubber meets the road, and we depend on you, and we just want you to know how grateful we are for you. So, you know, we want to help you in any way that we can. We just so appreciate the long hours and those long stressful hours that you put in, and for all that you do for our kids.
Okay. Now, we'll move on to audience comments. We welcome anybody who has anything that they want to say to us as a board. We invite you to come to the microphone now. You'll notice on our agenda we do have several different reports and action items, and so you're welcome to speak after those as well. But anybody who wants to make a comment now, you're welcome to do so. Please state your name and affiliation with the district. Second call for anybody wishing to make comments. Seeing none, comment section is closed. Approval of the minutes. Motion.
Mr. President, I move to approve the regular meeting minutes of April 27th, 2018.
Second?
It's been moved and seconded that we approve the regular meeting minutes for April 27, 2018. Those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Consent agenda, personnel, warrants, resolution 953, elementary school number 16, constructability and recommendations. Approval of educational specifications for elementary school number 17, overnight student travel, New Horizons High School, Future Farmers of America to the State Convention and Career Leadership. Development event in Pullman, Washington. Overnight student travel from McLaughlin and Ochoa Middle Schools to compete in mathematics, engineering, and science achievements state competition in Seattle, Washington. Overnight student travel for Chihuahua High School to compete in mathematics, engineering, and science achievements state competition in Seattle, Washington. Out-of-state student travel Pasco High School bilingual student program to Portland, Oregon. Motion.
Mr. President, I move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Is there a second? Second. It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion on the consent agenda? If not, could we get a roll call, please?
Mr. Christensen?
Yes.
Ms. Lincoln?
Yes.
Mr. Lerman?
Yes.
Ms. Phillips? Yes. Dr. Richardson?
Yes.
Thank you. Agenda item number 9, action items. Action item A, Nutrition Services 2018-19 lunch price recommendation.
So we do have a couple action items tonight. One is nutrition services and then the capital facilities plan. I'd like to invite Kristen Blair to the podium to ask for action around lunch prices for the 18-19 school year.
Tonight we come before you to obtain board approval for the presented price increases of 5 cents at both elementary and secondary lunch. The process and requirement to have the 2018-19 lunch prices in compliance with federal regulations was presented at the April 24th board meeting. At this time, we request your approval.
Any discussion, board members? Before we get to the action item. Okay, do we have a motion?
Mr. President, I move to approve the proposed elementary and secondary lunch prices beginning in the 2018-2019 school year as presented.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded that we move to approve the proposed elementary and secondary lunch prices beginning in the 2018-19 school year as presented. Any further discussion on the board? Can we get a roll call, please?
Mr. Christensen?
Yes.
Mr. Lerner?
Yes.
Ms. Lincoln?
Yes.
Councilman Richardson?
Yes.
Ms. Phillips?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Blair. Action item 9B, Ms. Thornton.
So Assistant Superintendent Sarah Thornton will be asking the board for approval for the 2018 update on the capital facilities plan. I just wanted to remind the board and kind of review for the public. This action item is the culmination of multiple study sessions and lots of work by both the board and staff. So we appreciate everyone's diligent study and attention to detail as we navigated this process.
Thank you. Good evening, Board President Christensen, Superintendent Whitney, and board members. As Mrs. Whitney said, tonight I am presenting for your approval the 2018 Capital Facilities Plan, which would provide the district a 6-year plan, the culmination of which would be a recommendation for continuance of our impact fees over the next 2 years. There are, and this is something that we did present to you in a study session on April 24th, where we went into some detail about the various components of the plan, but just for review, these are the required components, and I will walk through them with you here. Please feel free to stop me and ask questions as they come up. So what this updated capital facilities plan includes are educational program standards, the capital facilities inventory, our enrollment projections and capacity projections over the next 6 years, as well as a 6-year financing plan and a calculation of impact fees or SEPA mitigation fees. We start with our program standards, and the board has spent the last 2 study sessions looking at this work in some detail. This is where we're defining our educational program requirements and determining what space we need in order to meet those requirements. And so we're looking at the space that we need to provide our general education program as well as special programs that serve special student populations and other uses of the buildings, such as common areas, such as rooms for teacher planning, safety considerations, etc. And what this does is it establishes what we consider to be our standard of service for purposes of facility planning. Some of the key components of this calculation and the rationale for them, we're looking in calculating what our class sizes will be, we have to have some type of a measure that we look at. And so we are using for this plan the class size recommendations and requirements that are contained in Initiative 1351. As you know, Initiative 1351 establishes class sizes in grades K-12. The legislature did suspend the requirements for grades 4 through 12. So we are living with the K-3 class size requirements and grades 4 through 12 are suspended. However, we include them in the 6-year capital facilities plan, and we include them in that calculation because we don't know, number one, if over the next 6-year period the legislature may decide to undo that action and begin implementing. So we have to plan accordingly with that calculation. The work is also based in the recommendations of the legislature's QEC committee, which was convened a number of years ago and is consistent with past work or with past calculations in our capital facilities plan. In determining those class sizes, we're using a weighted average of those Initiative 1351 class sizes, and we're also applying a scheduling factor against the actual footprint of the building. That scheduling factor is one that takes into account things like planning time at the middle school, high school, and elementary school level. So the goal being that it gives us a realistic picture of what it would take for us to deliver the educational program in our facility that we want to deliver. And so for planning purposes, this is what we are using in this capital facilities plan. A district weighted average class size of 20.4 in grades 4 through 6, and a district weighted average of 25 in grades 7 through 12. Once we take that calculation, we apply it up against our actual facilities inventory, so it incorporates those program standards, and it also accounts for portable classrooms. Now, one thing that we had historically done with our portables is we had actually included a certain number of portables in our permanent space calculation, because we, a number of years ago, felt that we were not in a position to be able to make headway. We have made some headway since then, and the board has given very clear direction that portable classrooms should not be considered as part of the permanent capacity in the district. So you'll see in the actual capital facilities plan document that distinction is made. However, for reasons which we went into during the study session, in order to demonstrate that we're actually meeting our need across the district over the next 6 years of the plan, ultimately we have to factor that temporary capacity into the overall calculation. And as you know, our enrollment has grown by nearly 8% since 2012. Our demographer predicts that we are going to continue to grow. We've been averaging, even though our percentages have gone down a bit from what we've seen in the past, where we've had 4, 5, 6, 7% growth, the percentages are lower, 1.5%, 1.8%. However, that is still generating on average 400 students a year, which is just about what we would want to put in an elementary school. So we're planning for that growth to continue as we move forward over the next 6 years. This slide shows you what the enrollment projections are over that 6-year period, with the 6 years of the capital facilities plan highlighted. And of course, our growth trajectory, which continues to trend up. And so this is what our total program capacity for planning purposes in this capital facilities plan looks like at the elementary level. In the first column, of course, is the school name, and then you can see the grades that that school is serving, what our October 1 enrollment for this school year was, and then we get into how we calculate the student capacity in that building. So the program capacity would be without portable classrooms, what can, under the program standards that we just defined, how many students can be served in that building. The gray column in the middle, if that building has portable classrooms, then that gives us a calculation for how many students can be served in that those portables rather. And so the column furthest on the right tells us what the total site program capacity is when we include both the permanent brick and mortar and the portables. And then we do the same thing at secondary. You can see our middle schools and our high school totals, and then our overall district totals. So the bottom line is, with an October 1 enrollment of 18,082 and a total site program capacity of 17,472, we continue to be over-enrolled. So the next aspect of the capital facilities plan looks at what our inventory is up against our forecast need. And that also takes into account projects that we have in the pipeline. So for this particular capital facilities plan, we know that we have a number of projects that were approved in last year's bond measure that are going to be coming online over the 6 years of this plan. So on this slide, you can see the both the brick and mortar program capacity building. That's what that shows you. The total site program capacity, what our need is in 2017 versus the October enrollment. That's the middle column. It shows up gray here and not even close to gray on the screen. And then the forecast enrollment for 2023, so you can see how many seats we would need to add to be able to address all of the growth. And as you know, these are the capital projects that are planned to come online over the 6-year period of this capital facilities plan. So in looking at what our building inventory will be in 2023, and this is without considering the portables, you can see that we would be addressing some of the capacity need, but that we still would need additional capacity. This is just looking at brick and mortar. And then incorporating all of it into the capital facilities plan to get the total site capacity. This slide shows you where we will be, in essence, anticipated to meet the elementary need, be a bit under at the middle, and then of course the high school is still a need that we're not able to address during this next 6 years of the plan. That doesn't mean that we won't necessarily start bond planning for a new high school if that's something that the board wants to do. But what we're looking at in this capital facilities plan is projects that we anticipate actually opening, coming online over that 6-year period. And even if we were to run a bond tomorrow, that's not a realistic timeline for a high school. So the next piece is the, did you have a question, Christina? Because I could just keep talking.
Okay, so everything's said and done now, but just a question. So if I'm reading this right, and I could be reading it wrong, on the 2017 capital facilities inventory, current and forecast need, a couple more before that one. Okay.
That one?
Yes, ma'am. So, I don't know. I guess what I'm trying to ask is that if the forecast need capacity 2013 and the one for 2017, if the high school needed, and I know it's only 100 more or a couple hundred more on the 2013, if they have more kids coming in, then why a middle school instead of a high school that chose to be built for the bond, this bond that just passed? I don't know if I'm reading it right or...
Sure, no, you are, in that we are looking at the bond projects that were already approved, and it was a culmination of a lot of different inputs and a lot of pretty difficult decision-making that ultimately the package of projects that was prioritized to send to the voters did not include a high school this time, and did include the middle school. But as I recall, the discussion around those projects was that everyone recognized the need to add a high school or pursue a high school project in the near future. But oftentimes the biggest consideration there is cost, and that high schools are incredibly expensive to build. And so you'd be looking at essentially doubling the cost of a bond measure if you were to also add a high school.
Thank you.
All right. So, talking about the financing plan, and this is where there was a small modification, this is what Whitney mentioned, to the plan that you previewed when we sent it out to you on Friday. We did have a request to add an additional project to the list of projects that would fall outside of the 6-year period, and so we did do that. But keep in mind here that the cost of projects which are included in the capital facilities plan fee calculation are only those projects which, pardon me, would come online during the 6-year period. So nothing that falls below that 6-year line is included in the fee calculation. And this is what those look like. There we go. So you see at the top of the list are the approved November 2017 bond projects and then other improvements that are coming online. And then below that we have future bond projects that are subject to future planning and future board approval. This does not bind the board to carry these projects through or prioritize these projects should the long-term facilities master planning process come out with different recommendations. But based on the input we've received so far, the community builders work and other feedback, these are the projects that we're including in the plan now. And the I don't believe that it made it onto this list, but it is included in the capital facilities plan under future bond projects, is a estimated $5 million project for a parent partnership facility so that we can work toward addressing the needs of parents and students who choose a homeschool or non-traditional approach to schooling. So that is in the final capital facilities plan document. So the final piece is the calculation of the school impact and mitigation fee. And this is based on a formula that is defined by state law and established by city ordinance. It uses those growth-related facilities needs that we've identified. It also identifies a per dwelling unit share of cost to allocate to new buildings, which ensures that only a portion of the cost to build a new school is allocated to that new housing. So there are discounts in the actual fee calculation for the amount of money that we receive in state assistance for state match. There are discounts that account for the local taxes, such as taxes that would be paid locally on approved bond projects, and then there are also discretionary reductions as well. And ultimately what that results in is a proposed impact fee of $4,700 for single homes and $4,525 for multifamily units. The actual fee generated is higher than that, and you can see that on the actual fee calculation page. The actual fee for single family comes in at just over $5,700. We are requesting that the board exercise its discretion to keep the fee at the current amount with the city, which is $4,700. And so our request to you now is for board action on this capital facilities plan, requesting approval of the plan as presented. We are scheduled to workshop this with the city on May 14th, and then it would be scheduled for city council approval May 21st. So I apologize to Chief Metzger, who may have to listen to this again on May 14th.
Okay, so I think we're at the point where we can discuss and then do a motion, or we can have a motion and then discuss. Or we'll discuss after we have a motion or have that opportunity anyway. So, does anybody have any questions for Ms. Thornton while she is here?
I would like to thank you for all your hard work. I know it's a difficult project and a difficult thing. I want to thank you for all your hard work. So if you'd like to have a motion before we discuss it, I can do that.
I have a couple comments. So before we do that, as was mentioned, we've gone over this many hours, but for those that haven't watched those, and a quick summary just to kind of put some of this into perspective. So impact fees are not paid by current residents in our community. This is not, if you add an addition to your home, that's exempt from this. It's a city ordinance. You don't pay any sort of impact fee if you add onto your home, and that was a misunderstanding that some had spread. Second, I'd be in favor of having the city, if they don't already have an ordinance, where if you move within Pasco, you also don't have an impact fee. If you move from a home that you live in right now and you want a new home in one of these new developments, I think that should be exempt as well. And the reason for that is, even though that may lead to more students, someone moving into your home, your current home, just because to me that shows respect for our current community and honoring what they've contributed already to the schools through bonds and levies. And so if that's not an exemption, I think that should already be an exemption. That should be an exemption as well. If you move within Pasco, that you don't pay that impact fee. Now this $5,000, for all these new housing developments, so if 400 homes are built, that's $2 million. And the average child, school-age child per home, somewhere between 1 and 2. So we're talking about at 400 homes, that would essentially be enough for an elementary school. And yet the mitigation fee is $2 million, and it costs at least $20 to $30 million to build an elementary school. So who pays for that school? Our community does. So we pay for that as members of the community, in addition to what we've paid for in bonds and levies to support education. If you want to look back at, I don't want to rehash all the discussions, but the fact is in our community, overcrowding is really detrimentally affecting the education of our students, their day-to-day experience, and it's hard to see that in here because the portables are kind of counted as capacity, but that doesn't show the effect on their day, their specials, their gym time, their cafeteria time, their recess time. All of that is affected not only by the number of students, but also the portables that take away playground space. And if you have children in school, elementary school, you know that it has a big effect on their experience at school. So with that being said, I'm in favor of seeking the actual cost, and even if you look at the $7,600 and $8,000, even if we sought that, that's still less than $4 million for 400 homes, which would still come nowhere near covering the school from a new housing development. But to me, that's more the calculated cost. And that just gets rolled into the cost of buying a new home in Pasco. So if you're moving to our community, that's just included in your home price. And when you're looking in Kennewick or Richland or Pasco or Findlay, if you look right now, the houses in Pasco are significantly cheaper. They were when we moved here 7 years ago, and they still are. So adding a fee of $4,000 or $7,000 to help mitigate the impact on our schools that are already severely overcrowded is really insignificant in the big picture, because the house will still be significantly cheaper in Pasco than if you bought a house in Richland or Kennewick. With, in my mind, not that much of a difference of community. We're similar, we all live in the Tri-Cities, and so I'm in favor of seeking more. I would say $7,500. That's the calculated cost was $7,600 and $8,100. That we would seek $7,500 from both. And I think it falls on us to present that to the city as this is the calculated need that we have, and that's what we should seek. That's not offensive to anyone. That's not. There's some have mentioned, well, that's offensive to the city. That's not offending anyone. It's just coming forth and saying this is the need that's calculated. We're severely overcrowded still, and that's what we've calculated and what we would like to see. And so I would be in favor of seeking the 7,500, which is a slight decrease from what the calculated amount is for both single-family and multi-family residences.
So are you making a motion there?
I have a question.
But we can discuss further.
Somebody's got to make a motion before we start too much
Well,
discussion.
does anyone have a comment? Because we're still discussing before the motion, so if we want to discuss that, I'd welcome any comments on that modification before presenting the motion, then I'd be happy to.
So typically, so we've done this a little backwards, I think, in our district. We got into this habit, but typically you make a motion and then you discuss it. But we can do it either way, just
We can
because
change that practice, if that's a practice we want to change on, that's fine.
Any questions for Ms. Thornton while she's here?
Have there been preliminary discussions with the city that have indicated that, as Dr. Richardson says, they would take offense with something larger than 4,700? I know the recommendation is to stick with 4,700, but, and I apologize if I missed it in previous discussions, but what leads to that recommendation? Previous discussions or a gut feeling?
What leads to the recommendation of 47?
Not ask for more than we're already at right now.
Sure. There are a few different considerations that go into that. One, just as we take an opportunity when we're considering a major issue with the board to allow the board opportunity to have study sessions, to consider the issue, the item in front of the board, this would be a change that the city council would most likely, if the district were to present a fee that is outside of where our current fee has been, the city council would certainly be wanting to have the same kind of time to consider that. And so part of the issue for us currently is timeline. So that's one consideration. The other, I think, more significant consideration is that we don't currently have a long-term facilities master plan in place. And so, but we do have that process initiated, and the board has heard information from Dr. Reyes and Mr. Nonamaker about what that process is going to look like over the next couple of years. And it seems from a timing standpoint that the better time to make a significant change like that to the impact fee request and or the calculation would be once we have completed that long-term facilities planning process and we're able to incorporate those projects into the capital facilities plan. It's basically time for us to, this is an extension of the 2012-2017 plan, and we're about at the point where we need to refresh the entire plan, and the best time to do that would be on the heels of the the long-term facilities planning work. So it's really a question of timing. We don't have any indication that there would be resistance. I think that there are people in the community who plan around this. There are developers who plan around this, and so we want to be able to include them in the conversation as well. So if that's something that the board were to consider, our recommendation would be that we do that once that long-term facilities planning process is complete.
We also looked across the state of Washington at other impact fees that are gathered, and we looked at the discounts that were given to these different places and versus the initial calculations, and we are actually on the lower end of the discount. We give less of a discount than most, and there's some that are, much greater than average for the state. I think it's justified because Pasco has been one of the fastest moving cities in the state for years and years and years, sometimes the first, second. We are trying so hard to get out from under where we're at that I am not willing yet to increase that impact fee. I would like to I'd like to keep that where it's at. I would also like to have a plan of when we're going to stop the impact fee. Sometimes in government, we think that once a fee or a tax is instated, it never goes away. That is not the intention here, and that's not the intention of anybody in this district. When we don't need that, we need to make sure that we're not taking that from the community. And so having a plan out, I think, is essential. So right now, I'm great with this. I wouldn't mind revisiting it after our capital facilities plan is completely done. And I'm also in favor of, at that time, having our plan of action out of this when we get to a point where this isn't needed anymore.
I agree with what's in the capital facilities plan here right now, but is there a requirement to have a recommended fee amount, or could the board adopt this without the highlighted yellow there and give you a range to go discuss with the city council? You know, anywhere between 4,700 and 5,769, or anywhere between 4,700 and 7,692. Because if we just tell you one fee that you can discuss, is that the only thing you can agree on? It feels like, I agree with Dr. Richardson, it should be a discussion, but is there a requirement to have that highlighted portion in this capital facilities fee?
Not necessarily. In the initial plan that the board adopted back in 2012, the capital facilities plan was approved, but the actual fee amount, the recommended fee amount was TBD in that plan, and that was then taken to the city council, but that was done in advance of several months of discussion with council.
So I want to just point out a couple of things. And so we've had a question today earlier by one of our community members on why the high school number is 0. And I think you pointed out during your presentation that is, we're not planning to build a high school in the next 6 years. Not to say that we couldn't, that wouldn't be part of our long-range planning. Certainly we need it, but it's not in the schedule, in the queue for the next 6 years. So that number is 0. We do have a middle school, we do have an elementary school, and these projects, or these impact fees, are to pay for current projects, not things that we think should be there or that we wish were there. It's the things that are there. Is that accurate?
That's generally accurate. It's projects that we anticipate actually bringing to completion during the 6 years of the capital facilities plan, because we want to apply that capacity to this plan. So even if we started building a new high school during the 6-year period, we wouldn't actually be adding the capacity during that 6-year period. And that's why those top projects are the only ones that are calculated in that.
Okay, thank you. So I believe what we have here, we've had the presentation. Are there any questions on the presentation? If so, now is the time to ask them. We can get into discussion, but now we need, if there's no more questions to clarify anything that's been presented, we need a motion for either this or something different. Is that correct? We've got two things that we've got the capital facilities plan that we're approving and a recommended rate that we're going to take to the city.
So the proposed motion in your packet is to approve the 2016-2023 capital facilities plan. That does incorporate the recommended rate at the 4,700 and then the multifamily unit rate. So that recommendation is included in the motion that staff has provided.
So it's a single motion. The impact fee recommendation is rolled into this plan. Okay, very good. If we wanted to do something different, as Dr. Richardson has suggested, then what does that look like?
A board member would need to make a motion to approve the capital facilities plan without a recommended fee or with a recommended fee at a different amount.
And another question, just to clarify, this is a recommendation we are making to the city. And they have the liberty to either follow this recommendation or not. And the not could be, they say no impact fee, they say half of this, they say twice this. I mean, they're flexible at what, they don't have to set this rate, correct? Okay.
I think with that in mind, our role as a school board is to present our need to the city. Okay, so we have a lot of new city council members, and our role is to present what we need based on the data we have. We're much more familiar with the data in our school district and what's happening at our schools. So I still, no one's ever explained to me how it's offensive to anyone. If you're a new city council member and we come and present this and say this is what it shows and this is what we'd like to, to see, I don't see how that's offensive to anyone. There's no need to take offense for us presenting the information that we have. So that bothers me. Additionally, we had the same conversation in 2016, my first full year on the board, and I essentially was told the same thing. It's not the right time, we should wait. We all, even all board members kind of were like, yeah, we can see how it should be more. And so here we are 2 years later, and it's kind of the same conversation. Unfortunately, in 2016, guess which was the fastest growing community in Washington State, even after this? It was Pasco. Still, but I thought we were slowing down, and I thought we weren't going to be fast anymore, and we were the fastest growing community in Washington State again. Last year we weren't, but we were close. So again, the time's never right. That's been the problem for 15 years. We've never been aggressive enough. We finally, it took a lot of work, but we proposed and passed a $100 million bond, which is going to make a dent in this, but is nowhere near the need that we've had that's built up over the last 15 years. So it's very frustrating, but I'm happy to make another motion if you want, or if you, and we can, going forward again, we can discuss after a motion's made, but if we're going to modify the motion, it seems like we should have a discussion before a motion is made.
I think if you go to Robert and his rules of order, that you make a motion and then you discuss. But we've not followed those faithfully, so we can do it either way. I would prefer that we have a motion one way or the other.
If we are going to up this amount, I would like to know how we're going to use it. I think it's critical to show that we obviously have a need to build more schools. What I have loved about this money is, people say, really, $2 million is a drop in the bucket. Well, when you look at the discretionary funds that the board has to use in these cases, it's huge because so much of the money is already tied up. Even less of the money is available for capital facilities use. So being able to purchase land when it comes on the market at a decent price and to secure this land before there isn't any more, it's been a critical use of this money. Keeping the bond, we could not get this bond under $100 million. We were so worried the community wouldn't pass it over. And we were able to use $2 million of that money, I believe, to hit the money, that bond just under $100 million, which at the rate that we passed it by a whole 7 votes, it probably was critical, that money, to get that so we weren't, people were already balking at a 99-point-whatever million dollar bond. I think that might have been a breaking point for at least 7 people. So I appreciate what we are getting. I appreciate what we're getting from the city. If we want to give them a range and let them decide, I am okay with that. I am not okay with recommending that higher amount. And I do believe that our duty to the city is to show what we could do with these funds if we have them that we cannot do.
Okay, so, I don't know, something that just keeps bringing me back, because I'm a high schooler, and I see how full Chiawana is, and it just kind of, so, as mentioned before, you said within the next, within the next 6 years, a high school will not be built. So, and I guess what boggles my mind a little bit is I'm calculating it on my head and on the pad, and if Chiawana, my school, grows at a rate of 300 kids per year, by this time the 6 years is over, that'll be 5,000-ish kids. Now, 5,000-ish kids, we have 180 teachers right now. Let's say we add 50 teachers. That's like 80, and I'm losing my head, so this could be incorrect, but 80 kids per student. Per teacher. That is a lot of kids. What is the situation for that until those 6 years or the solution for that until those 6 years are over?
Sure, so there are a lot of different ways that the district has addressed that kind of an issue. Prior to the opening of Chiawana, for example, Pasco High School is the largest high school in the state. And so we had to use several different strategies in order to manage that. I would expect that we would go back to that bag of tricks, if you will, and look at that. We could certainly relocate additional portable classrooms to Chiawana High School. Chiawana is actually designed to be able to add brick and mortar classrooms. So depending, again, on funds available, that would be potentially an option. Scheduling options can also be put into place so that you can extend the school day on either side of the traditional schedule to kind of manage your usage of the building that way. So there are a lot of different things that we can do to address that while we're waiting for a new high school project.
Just a couple of clarifications. This grade, Chiawana was not growing by 300 per year. It'd be closer to 50 to 100 per year. It's not 300 per year. It was 400 for the entire district, all grade levels per year of growth. So some portion of that would be less than 100, but it's overcrowded for sure. And I think we need to think outside the box for that. So this parent-partner, like a homeschool partnership, that would help some draw some kids to that. I think having an innovative high school like Delta, this cost is higher than I would think. I think Delta was built for $15 million with the state matches and stuff that they got. If we had higher more impact fees and we saved those up, we could actually use that all and build that without running a bond. But what we've done in the past is we've usually bought portables and land, and we pay down parts of the bond to present to the city. I mean, look at this list. This is what we could do with the money. I mean, you name the project, and we could put some of that money towards any of these. I think the key to also understand is having something on here, we don't have to use any bond if it can be afforded as impact fees, and we get a couple $1 million per year of impact fees. If we save that, I think we can save it for up to 7 years, is that right? 6 years, something like that. If we saved it up for 3 years, we could actually build an independent facility without running a bond. It would be smaller, a smaller Delta, something like that, where we could take 200 or 300 high school students that want to be in a smaller high school, that don't fit, that don't do well in these traditional high schools that are huge, and actually provide them a more equitable experience. And we could do that without running a bond if it was a small, like New Horizons. We just remodeled that facility for $3 million, I think. We moved Horizons there. They have about 300 students for $3 million. So you could do it without a bond if it's the right project.
And just roughly looking at these numbers, until 2023, it looks like the high school's taking a big percentage of the growth rates, as we are about at 200 students per year growth expected just for the high school. So it is a real problem, and it's one that needs to be addressed quickly.
Okay, we need a motion.
Mr. President, I move to approve the capital facilities plan as presented with a modification of seeking a fee of $7,500 per single-family residence and $7,500 per multifamily residence.
Okay, it's been moved. Do we have a second? Do we have a second for approving the capital facilities plan with an impact fee recommendation of $7,500, I believe? No second. Any other motions?
Just to clarify, Mr. Christensen, if there's no second on that motion, the motion would die for lack of a second.
I move to approve the capital facilities plan as presented with the modification that we do not recommend what percentage to reduce it by, and leave it open for discussion between the board and the city.
Can we at
I'm
least,
sorry, the district and the city staff.
I think we should recommend a range then of 4,700 to 7,500. If we're going to leave it open, let's leave it open to that.
So we've had a motion, we need a second, and then we can discuss, or we need another motion with a second before we get into discussion. So we've had a motion for adopting this, for approving this update with no recommendation. Is that correct, Scott? With no recommendation on a fee. So we got that motion. Is there a second? Okay. We have another motion.
I move that we adopt the capital facilities plan with the modification of the impact fee between $4,700 and $7,500 with negotiations between district staff and the city staff.
So we have a motion for adopting or approving the capital facilities plan update with an impact fee range from $4,700 to $7,500. We have a second on that motion.
I have a question, but I thought it was presented that it's not really something that's recommended to do or that we can do, and I don't know, maybe I misunderstood.
I think we can recommend anything.
What are the dangers in doing that, Ms. Morgan, giving it a range like that?
So I think we need to have a second before we get into discussion. You can second this, we don't have to, we'll discuss it, and then you can vote yea or nay. It doesn't-
I second it,
Thank you.
but I can vote against my own recommendation.
Absolutely. It has been moved and seconded that we approve the update to the capital facilities plan with an impact fee range from $4,700 to $7,500. Now, is there any discussion on this motion?
Ms. Thornton, from the district's point of view, because I'm okay with this, I want to be very careful what we do. I appreciate that, first of all, the community just passed the biggest bond the Pasco's ever passed by a long shot. And I'm very appreciative of that. I want to be appreciative of what they're doing, and I don't want to put it too big of a tax. I think my biggest concern is what we're doing to the apartments in this area with that big of a tax per dwelling. So, that being said, is there some hesitancy with the district in going with a range other than a specific amount?
Before you answer, Mr. Chair, just clarify that this is not a tax for existing apartment, that nothing occurs to an existing dwelling in Pasco. This is, well, okay, but this is reword that because it sounds like that's what you were saying, that you don't want to levy a tax against the, you're worried about the apartments in our community. This is a fee for a builder to come in and build a complex or build tenant homes. So it's, the way you word this is confusing. It sounded like you were saying you don't want to add a tax because you're worried about what that does to the apartments, meaning that the ones, that to me that sounds like the ones that already exist, and that's not the case. That does not happen. This is something that's only for new things that right now don't exist. So it's just confusing the way that wording is. And again, the recommendation, we just had a presentation on 2 separate occasions from one of the state experts on, maybe she knows more than the state, on this type of thing. And the recommendation is to calculate it and then present what you recommend. I mean, the city council, is it 4 of the 7 are new? I mean, we want them to negotiate and decide what the fee is. I mean, we're the ones that have the knowledge of our issue. So I think it's really a misstep to say, well, let's just discuss it and negotiate with them. These are brand new and they're great, but they haven't reviewed this data. They're brand new. Why are we going to put that on them to somehow negotiate and come to this decision if we can't decide it based on all the information we have, based on years of service and knowledge of what's going on? I just think that's a mistake and not what's recommended based on the experts that have come and presented to us the whole process.
So what is your question?
My question is, I would like to know the recommendation of the district, how they feel about going with a range, and if they see any negatives with going that. And I also want to state again, just because we can doesn't mean we should. I believe that the funds of this area are very, I take the stewardship I take it very seriously. And I want to make sure that we're doing something right. And I'm not willing to go to them asking for $7,500, not even close. I am comfortable asking for the $4,700 in this, and I want to, and I feel like I'm comfortable going with a range, but I want to make sure we're doing what's right with the community. So I want to know what your hesitancy is, because right now, from what we've heard across the state, we're already a little bit on the upper side of what most communities do. And so to take that even further, I don't know if that reflects law in Pasco, and so I'm concerned.
Do you want to respond to what the, let me say something first here. First of all, I think we've got the district's recommendation here. It's to approve the fee that we currently got. We've gone through the calculation. It didn't come out at exactly that, but the recommendation of the district is to take that forward. I mean, if you want to give us your input on a range, that your feelings on that or your thoughts on that, then we would welcome that. But I would just ask that you not get into the discussion of the board, please.
You bet.
Thank you.
The staff recommendation continues to be that we go with a fixed fee amount for the $4,700 for the single-family units. And really that recommendation incorporates all of the considerations that the board has been discussing. Most significantly, the requirements that are laid out in the city ordinance, which does include certain discounts. So whatever the board's ultimate decision is, the city will be implementing what is consistent with the ordinance. The district's proposal is consistent with the city ordinance. We've also taken into consideration where council is around what you've mentioned as far as there being new council members and just, again, generally giving them enough time to be able to consider something new. And then finally, the impact to the public as far as being able to have an impact fee that is stable and predictable. The $4,700 maintains that. So our recommendation would be not to go with a range, but to go with a fixed amount.
Now, is this a one-time fee, or is this continuous?
This fee would be in effect for the next 2 years until the district renews the plan again or develops a whole new plan.
Only on new homes.
It's a one-time fee on a new housing development. So if someone comes in and builds a house in the community, it's a one-time fee for that residence. It has nothing to do with anyone that lives here right now, unless they built a new house, which, like I said, I'm not sure. Do you know if there's an exemption in their ordinance that if you move within Pasco, I think that should be an exemption too. You know, that if you build a new house in Pasco, you shouldn't have to pay it. But it's a one-time fee.
Now, as a 17-year-old, I can't speak to having $2,000 to $3,000 lying around. I wish I did. But it seems to me as if $2,000 to $3,000, which is a lot of money, but it wouldn't be a horrible decision to make as adding that. Because, as Dr. Richardson said, if it's still cheaper to build in Pasco than in Kennewick or Richland, you would think that the person building the complex or the house would still choose, if they were going to choose Pasco to begin with, to build there based on just the fact that it's cheaper. But I don't know. I don't have money like that. So.
Actually, to clarify something, there are exemptions and outs there, like on short plats, or if you had a single piece of property, I believe you're not paying it. Yeah, it has to be 3 or more houses. So it's usually developers that are paying this, and I like your idea, Dr. Richardson. It'd probably be hard to enforce because it's built into the price of the house. But
Yeah, this is Craig, if you look across the state, it actually doesn't affect and this is what I had a discussion with the person that came, if you look across the state, it actually doesn't affect the growth in those communities. Because it really didn't in our community. We actually still were growing just as much after this was implemented. Or it's not a statistically significant difference from what was estimated. So it's just rolled into the developer, they can pass that on to the home buyer or not. But if you're looking to buy a house, it's just look at the total cost and you decide where and when the right time is for that. And so it's kind of rolled into that whole package when you look to buy a house somewhere.
Okay, so let me just express my feelings on going with the range. I personally don't like it. I think if we're going to ask for something, we need to know what we're asking for, and that's what we go. If it's 4,700, it's 4,700. If it's 6,500, it's 6,500. If it's 7,500, it's 7,500. I personally like the 4,700. The way I look at this is this is an impact fee for the impact that these new homes have on our community. Now, we're way behind in capacity, there's no question about that, and the numbers clearly show that. But if you look in 2013, we passed a bond that added 1,860 based on the 620 students per elementary. We built 3 elementaries, we added 1,860 student capacity. This year, we just passed another bond, if my math is right, that adds another 2,235 students. And we are keeping up. In fact, we're a little bit ahead of growth in our district. If you look at the same numbers over that same period, or the projected numbers over that same period, we are ahead. So I'm not in favor of increasing this impact fee at all. I understand the sentiment that we are still behind. We are behind. And it would be nice if we could make up that money somehow, but I don't think it's fair to make it up on the backs of the people buying and building these new homes. I do think it's fair to continue, and it makes sense to me that we continue at the rate that we're at. We haven't seen growth stop. We do project that there will be growth. Granted, they may only be paying 10% of what their true impact is, but they're going to be around paying on bonds for the next however long we have bonds as well. So I think it's wonderful that we have an impact fee. I think we're fortunate to have an impact fee. We're one of the few communities in the state that does, and I am in favor of the district's recommendation of $4,700, and I will be voting no, and would encourage my fellow board members to vote no on this for 2 reasons. Number one, we don't go with the range, and I do not like the higher impact fee myself.
Now, is this like, if we did decide to go with the 4,700, would it be like the city council, oh, no, I know it's more processing than this, but could they say, oh, no, we don't like that, how about 3,700, or would it have to be a whole nother process? They would reject just that number, and then we would come back and think of another number that could be suitable?
So this is our recommendation to them. We're going to them, I believe, asking them to approve this, and it is well within their right to approve this. They could modify it, they could reject it outright, they could say no. We're done with impact fees in our city. I don't think that would be very wise, but they could certainly say that. Or they could say, you know what, we want to make it 10,000. But I don't think that they're going to vary from our recommendation. So. Okay, any more discussion?
I am not in favor of a range either.
Okay. So, if there's no more discussion, could we get a roll call, please? Any more discussion? Thank you. No. Let me just rephrase what we're voting on here. So the motion is that we approve the 2018 update to the capital facilities plan with a recommended range of an impact fee from $4,700 to $7,500. And I vote no.
Mr. Ryder?
Yes.
Ms. Lincoln?
No.
Dr. Richardson?
No.
Mrs. Phillips?
No.
Okay, motion does not carry. Motion fails. So do we have another motion?
I propose the motion to approve the 2016-2023 capital facility plan as presented.
with the same impact fee, right?
Right.
Thank you. Is there a second? I will second it. Any discussion? Seeing no discussion, could we have a vote, please?
Mr. Christensen?
Yes.
Mr. Honor?
Yes.
Ms. Phillips?
Yes.
Ms. Lincoln?
Yes.
Dr. Richardson?
No. 4-1, motion carries. Thank you, Ms. Thornton. So let's get back to the agenda here.
So at this point in our agenda, I'd like to invite Randy Vandermaker to the podium. He's here before the board this evening to present a set of recommendations that again is a culmination of some broader work. The board may remember that we, immediately following the Parkland tragedy, we engaged in a multi-agency review of all of our security sites. I do want to acknowledge Sheriff Raymond, Chief Mexico Chief here, and Mr. Davis from Franklin County Emergency Management, who are in the audience tonight. They have been integral in helping the district through this, and were very generous with their time to be here to help Mr. Vandermaker with the presentation and answer any questions that the board may have of them. This has really been a network of community efforts from the multi-agency staff that you see here, but other representatives that are not here tonight. And we had a very robust dialogue with our community, both in a community forum and through online input that were teacher surveys, community surveys, etc. So this has been a very comprehensive look at our current security protocols and practices, and Randy's here to recommend what I would look at as the first phase in a series of phases of continuing to refine our practices and our safety measures in our schools and our sites.
Board President, Mr. Christensen, Superintendent Whitney, and board members, tonight the district will provide an update on our district safety and security. Overview on the presentation tonight, and this presentation will provide some historical information and background on security and safety that the district has done, also a 2018 safety and security assessment, and then some recommended priorities. The Pasco School District has a history of performing security and safety assessments. You can see the dates above in this slide in the prior years. We have implemented several of those recommendations from those reviews each year, and this is an ongoing process and will be an ongoing process for the Pasco School District. And as we proceed, board updates will come your way. In November, our community passed a bond measure that included security foyers for 15 schools. The district continued with its multi-agency partners to walk every district facility and take recommendations from our community partners. In December, the district worked with the Pasco Police Department to plan a tabletop drill that would test the district's current plan. The drill took place on January 17, 2018, and provided valuable information for the district to use in updating its current plan. Along with that, you can see the members that took part in that drill. In March, we completed a multi-agency assessment of all facilities. The assessment took 3 days to complete. The assessment was followed by a community panel discussion where additional comments were taken from our community, and Washington Schools Risk Management gathered the information and comments to provide to the district. As Superintendent Whitney mentioned, we are grateful to all of the agencies that took part in this assessment. Taking 3 days out of their already busy work schedule shows the commitment that our community partners have taken to help make sure that Pasco schools are safe. comments from the multi-agency task force, from parents, students, student council, staff, the district broke down the recommendations into these following categories: policies, procedures, and training, building design and security, and student support systems. Under policies, procedures, and training, we will standardize training, implement a standard visitor management system, continue to provide safe schools training, and focus on crisis response training for all staff on an annual basis. We'll provide training for administration and staff. Put in place in the fall the Department of Homeland Security, if you see something, say something. That's a program that's initiated again by the Department of Homeland Security, and we'll work with public affairs to promote that program. And we will look at a third-party evaluation of our crisis plan and standardize it to update to include all schools and all crisis risks. Additional building and design steps that we'll take will be security barriers, access control, additional cameras, we'll have visitor management system, and door lock devices. And high priority items like working towards single point of entry and perimeter security at all of our schools. These can, as you can see, can involve a number of items that you see listed here. The first three security corridors have been designed and installation will begin in June. The plans have been reviewed by the principal of each school and the Pasco Police Department. Recommendations for future schools have been given to current architectural firms and engineers. For student support systems, in an effort to provide the best student support system, the district is looking into a Salem-Kaiser student assessment system. This program sets protocols and engages community partners, including law enforcement, public mental health, the judiciary, and juvenile corrections. The system has two teams, a school site multidisciplinary team and a multi-agency community team. This model maximizes school and community resources while promoting safe school environments and an appropriate response to student needs. Continuing with student support systems, here you see a number of those the district currently has in place to help identify, respond, and support students in the Pasco School District. So thank you, and do you have any questions?
So board members, any questions for Mr. Nonmaker?
What were the, I think you said 3 schools that are starting with the security fixing, whatever?
Emerson, Frost, and Whittier.
And then is information on those projects available on the district webpage at this time? That they're being accelerated and...
Yeah, there is information about acceleration. I'll make sure that it's updated.
So a couple things, but one at a time. So has any thought been put into fish room class or fish bowl classrooms at schools? Or, I don't know.
Krista, I think we might need some clarification in terms of what you mean by a fishbowl class.
So it's it's the 3-sided rooms at the end of the hall that, how do I describe it? One side is windows, and then the 2 sides are just the thin walls, and on all 3 sides are hallways, and then the 4th wall is another classroom beyond it. So, and that seems pretty unsafe because the walls are pretty thin, pretty, non-bulletproof, windows are non-bulletproof. Has anything, consideration been put to those? Or?
No, as far as I know, we haven't decided to take any of those kind of items into a classroom. We're looking at, are you talking about classroom?
Question, are you saying at Chihuahua High School there's classrooms like that that you're considering? Okay, so
Okay.
there was a multi-agency with, like, the police chief and the sheriff and fire, they walked through Chihuahua High School and they identified any of those pieces that they felt like we needed to address. What Mr. Notamake presented tonight is the first phase of that. So we have a whole database of other things that we'll continue to look into. So if the gentlemen that are sitting here identified any classroom at Chihuahua that was of concern, it's in that database. But just because it's not in this first set of recommendations doesn't mean we're going to forget about it. We're focusing on these things right now. We're going to get these things done, and then we'll go back and look at, okay, so what do we need to take on now? Okay? So Christiana, maybe you and I can connect about exactly which rooms you're talking about, so I can make sure that that concern is noted.
I may have missed this, but did they walk through every one of the 22, 23 schools in our district?
Yes, they did.
That's impressive, and I just appreciate all of the time. That took a lot of time, energy, and effort, and that just shows the community, the strength of the community we have, and the support that we have from our city officials. So thank you so much. I think this is great. Currently, I'm teaching in Richland, Washington. I have 2 entrances to my classrooms. In a classroom, you have these little locks that twist so you can keep the door locked. And if there's a lockdown or a critical lockdown, you can just flip it really quickly. Only one of my doors has it, the other one does not. When I heard about like the protocol that I should do, I immediately started locking the one that doesn't have it, so I could quickly lock that one. I got a lot of back from staff, from students, from everybody, because they're so used to being able to have access to that classroom through 2 doors. I'd be okay with that if I had 2 of those locks. But I've been in critical lockdowns and non-critical lockdowns that were not drills, and it takes me over a minute to lock both those classrooms. So honestly, I think the number one thing we can do is make sure that staff is trained. So I love that that's one of the first things on this list, because I wasn't trained, I didn't know. To me, that makes sense. I'm right by the office, right by the front door. My classroom could be an immediate target. So that training is huge, and those safety measures are huge. I do appreciate all, I brought up a concern at Markham Elementary, and it wasn't very long before that kindergarten classroom wasn't there anymore, and it probably wasn't just because of my concern, but they moved that kindergarten classroom from right across from the office with absolutely no security there. And I just so appreciate what the school is doing in order to make our kids and our teachers and our staff safer. So I think this is great. I'm so grateful for the community input. We actually hear about this in Richland and what Pasco is doing safety-wise, because a lot of Richland people feel like Pasco is ahead of the game on this. So I appreciate all that you're doing.
Yeah, I just want to thank our law enforcement for being here and for their input on this, and really, in addition to that, just for keeping our community safe and a great place to live. I mean, we've lived for 7 years now, and I've just never had any issues, really, and I think it's that we don't appreciate it because we don't have issues, and so I just appreciate all the work that you do to make our community a great place to live, and especially for the time invested in this. I just want to remind that this idea of relative risk. So I'm all in favor of this, and I absolutely endorse all that has occurred with this. There's been a lot of talk in obviously national media and things, and as an adolescent or adult, you are exponentially more likely to be seriously injured or to die every time you get in your car, especially if you have your phone that you touch. I mean, the risk of being killed or seriously injured in a school shooting is so low. I'm all in favor of addressing safety, but let's just keep that in mind so that, there's all this national media attention around this, but we should be helping kids, and adults understand the risks of driving, alcohol, phones. We could save thousands of lives with that and have a very dramatic effect. We should be more fearful of what happens when you get in the car, especially if you're distracted, than going to school and worried that there's going to be a school shooting. However, this is essential. I had a question, as part of the training for administrators and staff, I'm sure this was discussed, I'm curious about the feeling about somehow arming teachers. You know, we've read some districts are arming teachers with a bat or just something. I like the idea that if someone comes, they know there's going to be resistance. You know, I know that I believe that's a deterrent. I'm no expert in this. I'd be curious to just get a summary of the perspective of our, I'm sure this was discussed, but I'd love to hear just a brief summary, your thoughts on that, and maybe that's still being discussed. I don't know.
There were some recommendations around that, but I'm going to ask Chief Metzger if he'd like to step to the mic. And yes, we have had many discussions around that.
Thank you, School Board. And again, I want to thank you all for the opportunity to look at the schools, because school safety has really been something that I've been very passionate about, even though I had to get a whole new set of shoes after walking 10 miles one day. The sheriff and I might disagree on this to some extent, but here's my concern with arming people. I carry a gun as my duty. That's my sworn duty to protect you. That's my role. That's what I hire officers to do. You hire teachers to teach. We train a great deal on firearms, a lot. And because of that, and because it's part of what we do, my concern would be, can you possibly give enough training? And do you really want to give a teacher training? My real concern, though, is, and I've talked to a lot of other chiefs about this, is if we have an active shooter, by the way, we're very much, I think the board should know this, that we're very much ahead of the game as far as active shooter goes. I have a card, I can get into any school. We all have access to that through our police department. I think that's innovative. I think we also have a thing with the fire department, so if we have an active shooter, they're going to come in with us, and that's innovative. So we are way ahead of the game on that. Here's the problem I've got. If I'm coming in as an active shooter, this is what I'm looking at. I don't know any of these folks out here. I don't know who the bad guy is. That guy could look like any one of them, except I hope those of us in uniform. So we're going to go into a school not knowing how many. If you look at the Parkland situation, how many? What's going on? Who is it? How is it? I'm going to come in. Everybody's going to be very upset, which they should be. There's going to be a lot of finger pointing. I think I saw this person that way or that way. I think I saw 4. I think I saw 3. I think I saw 1. I don't know that, so then I come in and I got an armed teacher. I'll just pick anyone in here that comes around a corner and they've got a gun. I don't know who they are. I shoot them because that's what the call is for. That concerns me a great deal. So is there an absolute right or wrong? I can't say there is, but I would personally, as a police chief, would recommend to you as a board member that would be a last consideration. I think if you look at what this plan is, there's a lot of other recommendations there. I prefer you look at all those first, and arming teachers to me would be the last sign. To me, that's also a sign that maybe we've lost it as a community, and I really appreciate what you're saying. I think we are a pretty safe community. And I think this student thing, too, you've got 2 students over here on the board, which, by the way, I really appreciate. You guys are good. But it's that telling us what's going on. We have been very, very fortunate that we have students that tell us when something happens. Even if it's a false report. We spent 3 hours in Pascagoula the other day trying to figure out how to get around in there, but looking for a possible active shooter that probably was not there. But we spent the time to do it. That's very important. Some students saw something, even if they're wrong. That's okay. So it's that real active part of a student telling one of my officers, and we have 5 officers in the schools, telling them what's going on, what can be done, and this student is acting a little strange today, you need to deal with them. And the school takes great action. They take that student, talk to them, get counselors, get everybody else involved. That's what's going to stop the school shooting. You do all the other things you want, but we've got to get to that person before they decide they want to go into that school. So that's a long answer to your short question.
No, I appreciate it, and I love the idea of the prevention. And you know, Benton County, that's not our county, obviously, but I would love to see them use their safety tax to hire more counselors, because that would actually relieve some of the burden for the whole community, even though it's not our community and not our money. that we could have just more counselors in our community so that because I have this problem all the time, just getting them to see people, it's nearly impossible to make we identify an issue and there's just no help available. And I agree with your concerns. I'm just curious, and one of the things in Florida that was bothersome, I think, to people is that the law enforcement there didn't go in, right? The shooter just walked out and went to a house. And I don't think that would happen in our community, which I love that I have that feeling. Just as this goes forward, I think this will evolve, but, and you don't have to necessarily comment on this, but a lot of the media talks about, teachers being armed and leaving their guns and letting it go off. I don't see why the schools that want to do this, and I'm not saying we should do this, would have a scenario where you have identified 3 teachers that you would know, the administrator, you would have their picture, you would have hopefully even met with them and trained them. They would have a safe in their room, and this is throughout the school. It's locked and is only unlocked when there's an emergency lockdown activated. In the safe, there's a bulletproof vest in case that for some reason mistaken, there's a gun, and that they would literally be unable to access that unless an emergency lockdown was identified. So then there's no risk of this accidental left my gun. These would be trained people that you would all know. You would go to Tijuana and you would know that it's, I won't say any names, but these 4 people may be armed. You know them well, you've trained them, you've worked with them. But it's complicated, and I don't know what Sheriff Brandon had in mind, but I'm very supportive of this, and let's go forward with it, and it's going to evolve, I'm sure, over time, but I'm just so appreciative of that.
Let me say if I could, and I really appreciate that, but and I think the sheriff would agree with me on this one. The Parkland shooting is probably the worst example of police response out there. You're right, we would not do that. In fact, every protocol that could have been done was done wrong, and we do a lot of training on that. In fact, we've been in some of your schools doing that training, and so we're very active on that. Your school board, your people, a lot of them that are in here, have been very active with us on that, so I can just guarantee you that the mistakes made at Parkland would not have occurred here. And that bothers me because I see law enforcement professionals not doing their jobs, not going in when they should have. And I think that's very offensive. And because of that, not only do we have loss of life, but we have loss of faith, I guess, if you will, in school safety. And that's very unfortunate because I also have done a lot of study and research on school safety, and you're right, it's one of the safer places you could be. And I don't want to see us teach our kids that this isn't a safe place to be. And so, but we also have to take precautions. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
And beans, I got to throw it in the bus. So, first of all, the school district has excellent security plans in place. From my viewpoint, I think that you are a little complacent with your security and that you need to make it a priority. And that the security needs to be at the same at every school site, and that you must dictate to those administrators on the school board, at those schools that they will, implement those security plans that are in place, because planning as a group, practicing as a group is going to avoid a lot of things. And that complacency is what's going to reach out and bite you. As far as armed individuals in school districts, I'm not for it, nor am I against it, but I do believe that it is a topic with the way that our society is changing, that it deserves a little bit of discussion to decide as a community what it is you want. I don't think one man or one individual or one sheriff or one police chief just dictate that decision. And so that's where I stand with that. It's not as bad as we thought.
Yeah, I appreciate the reading, and I'll stop talking, but this is I've had a lot of people that talking about this, and I appreciate that this is an opportunity for us to really get on the same page. We have, part of this bond was an upgrade of the entry of most of our older schools, so we have the chance to make it a standardized approach. And one of the notes I made too was you had a visitor identification options that we're going to kind of still pursue. And when we lived in Texas, they were very strict. You walked in, you had to show your ID, you got it printed with your picture on it. I'm a visitor during this time. And that's, like Sheriff Raymond said, we don't have that, where there's school is different. And we need a standardized approach so that even though they may know Aaron Richardson, that my kids have been to that school for the last 7 years, I go there, I get I'm identified, I show my ID, I'm checked in, this is how I'm going to be here, they know that I'm there. and that we have that consistent across all of our schools.
So the good news for us is our administrators, our building level administrators have been asking for a refreshed, consistent, standardized approach to our building protocols. And so we had engaged with PPD even in advance of this fall, in really digging in as a school district in partnership with PPD to identify who are we, like what is our philosophy about crisis management. And so we spent a whole, I think like most of the day together, if not the full day together, really digging into those details well in advance of Parkland in preparation for standardizing our protocols. And so when Randy mentioned that there'll be administrative training on June 18th, that is a direct result of that work that was done this fall in standardizing our protocols and practices. There's another recommendation on the slide where there'd be a third party that would come in and look at our protocols and practices with a lens of standardization, and that's what they do. That's their kind of niche in this whole piece, is to come in and take a look at all of our protocols and practices. So we, again, our effort in focusing on that was because our building principals were asking for it. So we will work in collaboration with them to do that, and we're prepared to do the administrative training in June and then follow up with the rest of the system either over the summer or in the fall.
Now, on the topic of safety, something for maybe future discussion would be Pascal School District students over at CBC or the safety protocol over there. I don't know all the details of what happened, but my principal mentioned it to me earlier. I think an incident on Friday about an alarm that was pulled on purpose, or I don't know if it was Friday, but I know it was recently, and the student who pulled it had a disassembled shotgun or something in his bag or something. But I don't know if I'm getting all the details right. Don't copy what I say. But what would be that could be something for future recommendation, future discussion about Pascal School District students at CBC and their safety if an incident like that were to happen.
Yes, that is a topic of discussion right now that we're having with the fire chief here. We're having conversations about that.
I also had a concern. I know most of the security planning is for building, but a few weeks back we did experience an incident while we were at a tennis match with the possible shooter. What are the guidelines for if something like that were to happen again at a sporting event or an after-school activity?
Yeah, those topics, after hours, passing time, events like that, say at athletic events, there's going to be plans put together that will deal with that. However, we normally don't share those plans in public. But yes, there will be plans and protocols and training to go along with that.
Well, like said, I appreciate the intervention, the idea. I kind of mentioned what do we do when we identify this? I think that's an area that in education we're trying to keep kids in school more, but we have to find that balance between keeping kids in school that are really posing a threat, bullying, intimidation, truly an issue, keeping them in school versus actually having some sort of intervention that addresses that. I think this is an issue everywhere, but it seems like in our society we try to really, all the interventions are focused on keeping them at school, and sometimes that's to the detriment of other students, and it's not fair to them to have those students there. It's not fair to them to feel bullied. It's not fair to them to have that threat. And so I think that kind of fits into here as well. I'm sure it's been something that's been discussed.
Thank you, Mr. Nonamaker. And thank you, Sheriff Raymond, Chief Metzger, Chief Gear, and Mr. Davis for joining us tonight. We appreciate the work that you've done. Just noting that our district is proactive. We started in 2017 trying to get things in line. It wasn't driven just because of the shooting in Parkland, so I appreciate the work that's being done. And, I know it's a process, it's not an event, so we will continue to develop these plans as we go along. So thank you. Is there anybody in the audience who wants to make any comments? And we'll even go back and let you comment on impact fees and, what was the other one? Well, school lunches if you feel so inclined. All right, no takers. All right, thank you. So, that concludes our reports for the evening. We'll We don't have any extended study session or discussion, so future agenda items.
Our next board meeting is May 22nd. In advance of the board meeting at 4:30, we will have a study session, and that study session will be the board's opportunity to set some parameters for the rebounding for elementary and middle schools. When we build new schools, we need reboundary. We have had a community and teacher survey out, so the parameter making will include the opportunity to kind of hear what the thoughts are from our patrons. So that will be a great opportunity to integrate that for the board's consideration. During the board meeting, we're going to have the student board reps don't know this yet, but we are going to have a superintendent student advisory council end of the year review, where our board reps will have an opportunity to kind of present what we've focused on in superintendent student advisory council over the course of the year, and our extended report will be an opportunity for you as a board to give some feedback around the new superintendent evaluation tool, how that tool worked for you, any modifications that you would like us to consider, etc.
Thank you, Mrs. Whitney. Is there any, so board members, this is your chance, is there any particular item that you would like to see on an agenda, whether it's a report or an extended discussion? You don't have to, I'm just, if anything's come up.
The equity issue with the non-traditional high school or homeschool school partnership, I'm happy to share something on that at one of the upcoming board meetings.
Okay. All right, great. Anything else? Thank you, Dr. Richardson. Okay, very good. So now communications, Mr. Lehrman, do you want to start, please?
Yes.
I just wanted to share about the HAPS program. It was great. We had a lot of students, and congratulations to all the Pasco students that received awards.
I just want to comment on the McClintock event that I attended, the Dia de los Niños, Dia de los Libros, which is Children's Day book day. I love the focus on books and reading. I think that's the primary focus of our primary grades, is to learn to read, to enjoy reading, to become a proficient reader. So I like that focus, and it was a really great event at McClintock. I miss him when he was there.
Okay, we've had a lot going on. We did have our college signing day. We had a Cinco de Mayo assembly, and our new principal was announced for the next year. And our girls golf and our boys soccer are the MCC champs. We also began AP testing this week and teacher appreciation week as well. Our leadership kids are delivering donuts to our teachers. And our National Honor Society will be having induction ceremony for the new inductees this Thursday at 6 p.m. Also, we will be having districts for our tennis team this weekend.
So some exciting news from Chihuahua. So the baseball team has made it for state for the second time in a row, so yay for them. Chihuahua Stage Company is putting on Women and War, so that will be May 10th, 11th, 18th, and 19th at 7 p.m. They do a lot of commercials on what we have as Hot News, which is our advertising in the morning, and from the commercials it seems really good, so I wouldn't want to miss it. I couldn't tell you how much tickets are, but they're probably not a lot, so you should go. As well, we've done AP testing. We've gotten through AP Chem and AP Psychology, so fingers crossed for them. We did every 15 minutes, I want to say probably about 2 weeks ago, which is the don't text, don't talk, don't, do distracted driving thing, and it was very emotionally charged. If you haven't attended one, please do, because our DECA team puts a lot of work and effort into that, and it gets the message through all the way. And then prom was not this weekend, but last weekend. Yeah, 2 weekends ago. And it was enchanted for us. We had an excellent turnout. The kids had fun. They said the DJ was great. So, and that's it for Chihuahua.
I'll pass.
So just want to remind the board members that we do have an opportunity to get some, I don't know what you call it, information from our WASDA officials this next Thursday. so it's day after tomorrow. If you haven't registered, it's not too late. There's going to be some discussion on legislative issues. And I'm going, I think Mrs. Phillips, are you going? It's in Walla Walla, so it starts at 6 o'clock. The legislative part starts at 5, but I know there's going to be some discussion on things in this upcoming legislative session about school safety, the topic that we just talked about. And I believe there's also going to be some information on bargaining around the state and the impacts of recent legislation on bargaining. So you're welcome to go, and invited to go if you'd like. I'm going, so you can go with me. I'm going early, so I'll have to go early. Maybe Mrs. Phillips isn't going, so anyway, that opportunity is available.
I know we're running over time. I did just want to tell a quick story about being at the HAP Awards. So Stevens Middle School student, she's a 7th grader, sang the national anthem. And she was sitting up there dressed in red, white, and blue, sitting there. I walk up and visiting with her, and she said, when I was in 4th grade, I was at the HAP Awards, and my dream has always been to sing the national anthem here. Oh, it's incredible. So I cried. Yeah. And then she sang and I cried. And then she sat down and she said, I did it even better tonight than I did at the assembly today. So she nailed it. She felt great about it. I wanted to invite the board to a couple events. One on the 15th, which I believe is next Tuesday. Is that right? We're doing our first ever Superintendent Education Signing Day. So any senior who has indicated that they want to be a teacher is invited to an event with me where they'll get a certificate that acknowledges their commitment to being a teacher and encourages them to consider coming back to Pasco, where we will support them through our Employee Services Department in getting their application in and getting, all lined up for an interview. And so I'm super excited. It's our first ever. Super excited about that. And then on the 16th next week is the PHS Hall of Fame night, where we have some inductees into the Hall of Fame, and then the Golden Bulldog Awards. So those are the events on the calendar for next week.
Thank you. Is there an executive session? All right, so we do not have an executive session, and that concludes our meeting. We are adjourned.